Hi everyone. So I got an email this week from Adam. Adam's a Lambda Island subscriber and he'd watched some of the episodes about setting up Figwheel with CIDER on Emacs. But that episode is already a little older and a lot has changed since then. Figwheel-main came out, Clojure CLI tools came out, and so he was wondering how to adapt the example in that episode to use Figwheel-main and to use Clojure CLI, but to still work seamlessly with Emacs and CIDER. And I figured I'd do this little video about it so that I can share this with other people as well. The good news is that things have really improved a lot. Figwheel-main is a significant improvement over the original Figwheel, and generally there's not that much setup needed. But you do kind of need to know just like the couple places where you need to set things up for it all to work correctly. So I made a little repository here, and I have 3 files so far. So of course I have my deps Eden. So I've added a single directory to the class path so far where I'll store my Clojure script source files. Of course I needed Figwheel-main as a dependency. I've also added reagent, just sort of, so we can maybe do something with that later on. Whatever, Clojure script libraries you want to use there. And then if you look at the Figwheel-main instructions, it'll tell you to set up an Eden file like this, where you say what your main namespace is, and you call it something like dev.cljs.eden or prod.cljs.eden, where sort of that first part of the file name is your build identifier. So that's all I have so far here, and then I have one file, a main namespace. So this is source/figmax/main.cljs, and so far all it does is enable console print. So this means that when you do something like print line, it'll go to your browser console, and then I print something out so we can see if that's working. And so I think what I should be able to do now is say Clojure, and I give it a main namespace, Figwheel-main, and then you tell it which build you want to use. Now, one thing you'll notice is this should work, but it's going to give me a warning. Yeah, I'm starting up cold here. There's no CP cache, so this takes a little moment, but shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to say. Attempting to dynamically add target to class path, target directory target is not on the class path. So you'll see that yeah, and now it's all started up, and so you get this page that loads, Figwheel connects back, and now man, this is all very slow at the moment for some reason. But yeah, this should drop to a REPL. Now what I wanted to say was, if you look here, Figwheel created a target directory where it basically spits out all the compiled Clojure script. And so it expects target to be on the class path because the internal web server that Figwheel-main is going to start is going to serve files from the class path. And so you see that there's that public in there. It's going to find that public and then the files in there to serve. It now added this dynamically to the class path, but that's kind of a hacky thing. So we actually didn't tell Figwheel to start a REPL. That's why we're not getting a REPL here. But so the Figwheel with the reloading is happening. So here's our happy holidays, and then when I change this main file, happy holidays y'all, and I save that, then that rebuilds and reloads. So okay, Figwheel working. Now that's okay. Emacs is not involved yet. I just wanted to make sure. I mean, it's generally a good idea, like before trying to make sure you get CIDER working, make sure that your tools actually work without CIDER. Like someone was in the chat, the CIDER Clojurian Slack channel recently, saying, yeah, my CIDER connection times out. They were using linein, and it turned out when they did line REPL that it also didn't drop to a REPL, and it was loading a namespace during startup which contained an infinite loop. And so these kind of things, like, before blaming it on CIDER, make sure that your tools work sort of outside of your editor. But back to Emacs. So yeah, like I said, like nothing's really changed here. Yeah, I'm not going to do tree now because there's all that stuff in Target, which kind of makes it messy. But if you look at, like, nothing's really changed. There's those 3 files that I talked about earlier. There's deps.eden, which contains the Figwheel dependency. There's your Figwheel configuration for a dev build, and then there's a single main namespace. Okay, so now in CIDER or in Emacs, what I would do is say CIDER jack in CLJS. There's also a jack in CLJ and CLJS. If you're sort of developing both Clojure and ClojureScript, maybe you're doing backend and frontend at the same time, then it's going to give you 2 REPLs, and that also means that you can evaluate stuff from both Clojure and ClojureScript buffers, and it'll send it to the right REPL. But for now, I'll just keep it simple. I'll start with see if the CLJS setup works. Now, this is gonna. This is actually. Let me do that again. Well, as soon as it's finished starting. So if you do this on a clean start, it's gonna ask you what kind of REPL type you want to use. It's not asking me because I already have some variables set to sort of give it defaults, but I want to get to that later on. Okay, no, it is actually asking me. So yes, so it's telling me, okay, which ClojureScript REPL do you use? I want to use Figwheel-main. And then next up, it asks me for Figwheel-main options. Now this I found confusing, because the way that this is phrased, so you see here down there in the mini buffer, it's giving me that prompt. And usually when it looks kind of like this, I would assume, like, if I hit enter, that def would be the default. But if you hit enter, it's actually just going to give you an error, which is kind of cryptic. So yeah, you do actually need to put something here like def. Enter. Yeah, there's no REPL yet, it's still starting. Yeah, I just rebooted, so it's all coming in cold. But again, Figwheel pops up with that page. I can close the other one. And if we look at the browser console, okay, so it loaded our main namespace. So Figwheel's rolling. There's the REPL. And so also I can evaluate forms here, and it's going to send that to the browser and back. So like I can do this a couple times, and yeah, browser said that it did that 4 times now. So that's cool. So we got a REPL. So that's really all there's to it. Wasn't that much to it, but and yeah, when I save this, it's going to recompile it, load it again. But also here, we got that warning, attempted to dynamically add target to class paths. So what we really should do is add that target here. Now, the next thing, when I'm actually setting this up on a project, I don't want it to give me those prompts every single time. So yeah, I'm gonna. So when I say CIDER quit here, because I'm in an Eden file, which is loaded in Clojure mode, it's going to look for a Clojure REPL. There's only ClojureScript REPLs. This is kind of stuff that you need to watch out for. So from here, at least, I can say CIDER quit and close this connection, so I can get a fresh start. You could also say sesman browser to kind of see what your current CIDER sessions are, and then maybe jump to the REPL buffer and kill that one if you want to close the session. Now, like I said, I want to get rid of those prompts. Now, the way to do that is in the root of your project directory, you create a file called it's still early, .dir-locals.el. So this is an Emacs Lisp file, and this contains a single Emacs Lisp data structure, which is a list, and that list contains pairs. So this is what Emacs calls a association list, where these pairs, it uses this cons notation, where you sort of have like a key and a value on two sides of a dot inside parentheses. And the first thing here is which modes you want to talk about, you want to set variables for. Now, if you don't really care about, the major mode that this applies to, you just want it to apply to all buffers in this project, which is usually what I want, then you just say nil there, right? And then the value in here is another one of those association lists, right? So another one of those key value pairs, which in this case, the key is the variable name and the value is whatever value you want to set. Right, and there's two variables here that I want to set. You can sort of maybe if you're not sure what to set, like you can say customize group and then find the CIDER group, and that should give you a bit of an overview of the various things that you can configure for CIDER. Or what I would probably do is do the describe variable. So in regular Emacs, that would be Ctrl-H-V. And then because I'm using Helm, it kind of gives me this auto-completion thing, and I say CIDER, and then you can kind of see. And in particular, I'm looking for something concerning CLJS REPL. Yeah, so CIDER default CLJS REPL. That's the one that we want this time. So default CLJS REPL, the default Clojure script REPL to start, affects things like CIDER check and CLJS. That's exactly what we want. Generally, it's intended to be set via your locals for individual projects. That's exactly what we're going to do. And yes, you can customize this. So you can set, with customize, you could set this so it, it always loads when Emacs starts for all your projects. But as the documentation hints at, this is more something that sort of relates to how a particular project is set up. So CIDER default CLJS REPL, and we want to set that to Figwheel-main. Doesn't need any quoting or anything. This is not going to get evaluated. It's just a data red quoted, and so we just give that symbol. So that's the first thing, and then the second thing is the build that Figwheel is going to use. And so here the variable you're looking for, and this time I'll do it the space max way, so space HD for help describe, and then V for variable, and that's CIDER Figwheel-main default options. You already see it there. So it defines the Figwheel-main start options. And so this is also something to realize, that this, whatever you put in there is passed to this API function. So it's not like you might think what you put there are the options that are passed to the command line, the way that you would do, Clojure-m Figwheel-main -b def whatever. But no, this is actually some kind of Clojure form that gets passed to Figwheel-main start. Now, if you look at Figwheel-main start, thank God for CLJ-doc, am I right? It says that it's deprecated for Figwheel-main API start. So let's look at Figwheel-main API start. And there you kind of see that you can give this variable various things. The simplest is to just give it a single build. So this can be a string. It actually also works with a keyword, which seems to be what CIDER kind of assumes that you're going to be putting there. Or you can put a map of options in there. And then also interesting to know that there's a read build function. And so you can sort of combine those if you still have your build information in def, but you do want to specify some extra options there. In def.clj.eden, you can sort of combine those. But for now, let's keep it simple. So CIDER Figwheel-main, no, not that one, Figwheel-main default options, def. So what CIDER is actually going to do is it's kind of going to do, a format of Figwheel-main start, and then just sort of splice whatever string you have in there. Except that it's going to normalize that. It's basically going to see if it doesn't start with any kind of parentheses or bracket or curly braces, then or with a colon, then it's going to put a colon in front. So if you do this, it's going to end up looking like this. But so you can also, put a map in here with options, or you can even put some Clojure code in there. It's just going to get put in there and evaluated. But so yeah, we just want to do def because we have our configuration in def.cljs.eden. And now I'll go back to main and I'll start my REPL again. And so very typical thing, very common mistake to make, caveat to run into. You'll do your CIDER jack in CLJS and it still asks you which REPL type you want. And the reason is that we've set those variables in dir locals, but dir locals only get read whenever a buffer, like a file is loaded into a buffer. Then it's going to check those dir locals and set them as local variables on this buffer. See, like it's still asking us, I just set that, did I do this wrong? This dir local syntax is confusing. No, you didn't do anything wrong. You just need to do an extra thing. Is there no extension? Okay, that's good. So yeah, I do Ctrl X, Ctrl V, find alternate file, and just load the same file again. So, but this time, and you can easily check this, so what I would do to make sure that, it actually picked it up is meta colon. So I get this prompt where I can type in some Emacs Lisp and then check these variables. CIDER default CLJS REPL is Figwheel-main. Okay, and CIDER Figwheel-main default options is def. Or again, you can say describe variable, CIDER default CLJS REPL, and then it'll say what the current value is. It'll also tell you that this is currently buffer local, which is indeed what we try to do. So yeah, CIDER jack in CLJS. And this time it should just start without asking anything. I'll close this one again. A new one should pop up any minute. All right, connection established. And dum, 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 dum. And here we are. It's loading, it's connected, it ran our code. So far, so good. Now, of course, this Figwheel default def page has some useful information, but the main thing about it is that it tells you how to set up your own index HTML and it gives you a little template to start with, because it's important that it does load your compiled Clojure script. And so it says, okay, put that under resources public index HTML and you should be good to go. So let's try that. Resources public index HTML. Put that there. Do I want to create a directory? Yes. So now it should start loading our own version, which at this point is just a blank page. Well, let's put something here. Our own version of index.html. Yay. And so I was trying this earlier and I did that, and then you reload this and it's like, okay, do I need to restart Figwheel? Did I do this wrong? The thing here is that if you remember what I said about target, there's this target/public, and that this is put on the class path so that the web server that Figwheel runs finds the files in there. Because if you look at the top buffer, that you'll it says source is CLJS out, like this is the CLJS out you see here in the bottom one, which is under target public, and it picks that up because target's on the class path. Now resources in a lot of projects is already on the class path, but in this case, because we started with kind of an empty dep seed and we didn't yet put it on the class path, and so that's why it's not picking up. So that's one thing to watch out for as well. Just need to put that there. I'm gonna quit my REPL one more time and check in CLJS once more. No. Yeah, see, sometimes I really wish that CIDER had an easier way to just say like, kill everything. I just want a clean slate. But there you go. So I just did sesman browser so I could sort of see what was actually happening. If I do sesman browser again, you see that there's no more sessions this time because I went to the buffer and killed it. So now I can try that again. So from here I should be able to say CIDER check in CLJS. And yes, I didn't pick up the changes in dir locals in this buffer. But okay, that's fine. I'm not going to kill that process now. I'll just put in the choices. So here's our REPL, it's initializing, and here we are. And so that means that I can now mount my amazing reagent app and yes, so yeah, the first time always like, you know, compiler needs to AOT, the second time it's a lot faster. So that's it. I mean, I hope you agree with me. Like, if you look at it, like, okay, this, you know, took a little while to talk about all the different things that I've been doing, but if you look at it, this is basically it, right? Like it's these three files, and then the rest is just my actual Clojure script code. So it's, you know, stuff relating to Figwheel is in total 5 lines of configuration, and then some of those you don't even need to start with anyway. One more thing that I actually also want to mention that isn't necessarily about Figwheel, but also good to know. So quite often you don't want Figwheel to be you know, an actual top level dependency of your app, because you don't want that in production. In production you're going to compile your Clojure script code, and so you don't need that reloading that you need under development time. So then it's common to put this under an alias, right? So I put this under a def alias now. The thing with that is that now you need to tell CIDER to start Clojure CLI with the def alias, or it's no longer going to find Figwheel. So I'll quit CIDER again. And so this you can do, I'll again do space help describe variable. There's a variable called CIDER Clojure CLI, and then there's a couple different ones here. Now CIDER CLI command, this one currently has the value just Clojure. Like this is the actual, you know, bin Clojure command that's going to run. Parameters, so like the first one you don't really mess with. The second one, parameters, these are the parameters needed to start nREPL, load nREPL, start nREPL. So again, like this is kind of CIDER internal stuff, unless you're doing more advanced stuff, like maybe like setting custom middleware or something. Maybe there's use cases for that, but generally that parameters is also not one you really wanna mess with. The one you want is this one, global options, which currently is nil. But so these are basically just extra options that get added to the Clojure command line. And so again, this is one that I will very often set on a project level in Dir's local. So for instance, now it'll load the def alias. Let's reload this to make sure that this time it does actually pick up those variables, and then I can check in CLJS or check in CLJ and CLJS. Unknown alias key deps, yes, because it's not deps in this case, it's extra deps. My mistake. Okay, so last time, hopefully. Yeah, sometimes if this takes a long time and you're not sure what it's doing, it's always interesting to check out this nREPL server buffer. I mean, there's usually not much in there, but sometimes you kind of see that it's still loading jars, downloading jars, or something like that. Okay, connection established. That should mean that we have a REPL now. We actually have two. One is type CLJ, and one is type pending CLJS. Pending because it hasn't actually upgraded fully to a CLJS REPL yet. And here we are. So this now it should drop into a REPL and change from pending CLJS to CLJS. Yeah, okay, so that also took a moment, but here we are, and now it's of type CLJS Figwheel-main. So you can also see that when you look at your buffers, REPL CLJS, REPL CLJ. So that's it. I hope that was helpful to someone. Have a nice day and check out Lambda Island. Thank you.